Hello and welcome, Greg Deacon from NFRN. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Convenience Talks. For those of the people out there that possibly don't know who NFRN are and who you are, what you do, would you mind just giving us a brief introduction?
Yeah, so good morning and thank you for having me on. My name is Greg Deacon. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the NFRN. The NFRN is a members federation, been around for 100 years, we're in our 101st year, and we're there really to support, guide, assist members every day in food retail, but also any independent retailer in the sector can become a member of the federation. We currently have around 11,500 members representing around 15,000 shops.
Right, okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. So talking about the NFRN specifically, but obviously the members that you represent as well, what were the initial impacts of the coronavirus situation? So when we started to see everything ramping up and we realized that this was going to be big, what were the initial changes that happened to NFRN and what you were doing?
Yeah, well, we've just gone through massive structural change ourselves, actually, and moved the business to the northeast of England from London. We've got two offices now, one in northeast, one in London. So our immediate concern was actually how do we support the members? So as coronavirus became more apparent and became more visible in the UK in terms of being reported on our shores, our immediate thoughts turned to, right, how do we equip ourselves? How do we make sure we're tooled up and ready to support the members? Because they're really going to need us. We can foresee actually an avalanche of change coming in terms of the sector, customer behaviour and business operationally. So we set about that immediately. So we made sure that everyone was able to work from home effectively. We knew that there was going to be a lockdown situation at some point, looking at what was happening in Italy, Spain and other locations like China. And our immediate thoughts was how do we support the members? And then it was kind of operation around, well, when we've done that, then how do we support the members going forward? But our primary concern was that, and then liaising with government, working with suppliers, and making sure that where possible we can maintain normal business routine for ourselves, but equally for our members.
Okay, and so you've obviously had to make some big adaptations in the way that you work and where you work and how you work. So how has the NFRN adapted within the last, say, 4 to 6 weeks, and what effect are those adaptations having on your normal business sort of practices?
Yeah, so I think, look, it's not the normal for a business such as ourselves to have all staff working from home. We have a call centre, we have a field team. Obviously, we visit members on a daily basis. We've been able to obviously call members now proactively. So that's been an adaptation really in terms of not seeing us face to face, but being there for them either over the phone from an inbound perspective, but also equally from an outbound perspective. We normally
down with the members. Are the members happy with that adaptation? Are they happy to have telephone conversations rather than face to face?
Yeah, I think they're really understanding right now. I think a lot of businesses have pulled out their field staff from stores, and quite frankly, that's the right thing to do from a safety perspective. The members are putting themselves at risk every day. Just open up the shutters. So they've adapted really well, so has the staff, because we're still maintaining that contact with a member, whether it's face to face or over the phone. I think they're very supportive of us in doing so, and we're helping them. So whether they need a business request or help with completing documentation, for example, in terms of the grants and stuff that the government have provided. So we're assisting them. We normally receive about 300 calls from members a week, and we're receiving anything up to sort of 1,500 a week at the moment. So they really do need us, and we're also making around about 1,000 proactive calls outbound a week as well. So, whether it's inbound or outbound, the members are actually seeing more of us. And we've also dialed up our communications, whether it's on digital and social media. So we've been very present, I think, in the members' mind right now. And I think they really benefited from that, and they're really appreciative of it as well.
Okay, thank you. And what about, so do you run events as well as part of what you guys do then at NFRN?
Yeah, so the annual calendar is actually, that's quite transformational. We haven't got a conference anymore that we hold on an annual basis in the summer, and a lot of the structure of the federation, actually the rhythm of the federation, is designed around that conference. So again, that's a significant change for us. I think it's probably the first time in federation history in 101 years they're not going to have an annual conference this year. So even during the war, I think they were still able to function slightly differently to what they are now because of the social distancing. A lot of our members, we've got to protect their health, and that's paramount during this. We had other events, regional events, where trade suppliers can come and meet members and do deals and help them save money and make money, and making it a little bit easier to do business on a one-to-one level. That's all changed. Fortunately, we've got our awards, which is going to be in January 2021. So we're able to plan for that, but we're also very considerate at the moment that for suppliers, it's obviously really tough times, and if you seem to be supporting events, may be tricky. So that's been very difficult for us. But again, working with the suppliers, working with the members, everyone's very considerate of the situation right now and very understanding. A lot of the things have been sort of suspended, parked, for a better word, until later on. And other things have been sadly cancelled and removed from the calendar altogether, to be picked up next year. So that has not been too useful for us from a way of doing business, but we work around that, and we're working with suppliers, and we're able to do so.
Mm-hmm. And how has the support been from suppliers for you and for your members?
Yeah, so I think every conversation we've had so far has been very proactive. The situation, and I have total empathy with the supplier base. A lot of people will think that actually it must be really good for all the brands at the moment, but there are winners and losers in this. And obviously there's a lot of operational angst in terms of how do they get product to store and to their consumers, ultimately through the retailers. So we've seen significant pressure in the supply chain in terms of availability, unusual buying behaviours from retailers, because a lot of our members are now going 2 or 3 times a day to cash and carries just because of the supply and demand, which is good news for those guys that are open. But obviously that's causing real operational challenge in the sector. But suppliers are working with us. There are some challenges right now. I'm not going to shy away from it, that a lot of products still going to the supermarkets but not quite reaching the wholesalers or retailers directly in terms of independence. And we're working with the suppliers on that. But also empathise with the situation in terms of they've got their own staff challenges in terms of isolation or sickness or both. And we're just working pragmatically with them in terms of what can we do to rectify the situation as quickly as possible.
Okay, and then finally, and it's obviously very difficult to even start talking about the future when we still feel like we're in the eye of the storm, so to speak, but from your experience so far within this situation, what do you think the future looks like for NFRN and your members?
Well, I'm really optimistic, which is very difficult to be in the current climate. But I think actually when you look at consumers right now, I think the buying behaviour and the mindset has changed to shop more locally. I think there is going to be a reawakening to the local shop retailer, whether it's the shops that remain open right now in terms of in terms of convenience retail, but equally those that are still closed, whether it's a hairdresser and other convenience shops that may be frequented locally. We're seeing a real shift change now in consumer behaviour, and I think some of the things will become the new normal is delivery through local retailers. A lot of them have been really agile and totally transformed their business overnight, quite frankly, because they were forced to. But what's amazed me is that they've been able to do it and pull it off. And we've seen that not just in terms of delivering newspapers, and there's been an extra 200,000 orders for that alone, going from independent retailers, but actually equally the food and drink that they're supplying, the daily essentials. So that's really comforting for me, and I think that's a real huge headroom opportunity for retailers moving forward, and I'm really excited about that. And I think that will become the new normal for a lot of customers through the local retailers, and actually for a lot of retailers that will become the new normal for them in doing business. That have significant changes on bricks and mortar. I think some of them have become a lot of their bricks and mortar space might become fulfillment houses to deliver these parcels and goods to their local communities. But that would be good for business overall. That keeps their customers loyal to them. So I think technology is going to play a key part in that. One thing that we're looking at the moment, actually, how do we equip the next sort of generation of retailers going forward that are going to actually have a professional delivery service in terms of part of their store proposition. And I think cashless payments is going to become the new normal for a lot. That's going to have a significant impact on the retail sector, and retailers have to be ready for that. They have to modernise their stores and be able to over this new demand from consumer, whether it's paying for goods via an app where they're getting products delivered or click and collect or over the counter. And obviously many of them don't have that facility right now, but need to coming out of this, because I think the consumer will demand it, not just because of health and safety reasons, because that behavior change has happened, and it will stick because of the duration that we're going through in terms of this. But I think all those things really mean that technology is going to play a more integral part. And I think that's going to help us mitigate future episodes like this, actually, in terms of equipping those businesses with the tools that it needs so they can survive real transformational change in their lives and their consumer lives, because they're ready and able to sell to them in different ways. So I think a lot of stores will bring a digital self to their customers, and I'm really excited by that. And I think that's just accelerated. It was coming. A lot of stores were doing it, but I think the next sort of couple of years have just been accelerated to now, and that's what they're going to do. And the federation, well, we've got to be ready to support retailers with that. So we'll be doing everything we can on a day-to-day basis to equip our members with all the latest information, advice and support, whether it's app-based technology, whether it's delivery propositions, I think, and cashless payments. I think we'll be ready and available to provide those to the members, and that's what I'm mindful of at this moment when I get my head up from the daily grind, as it is right now. And I think that's a very exciting future for both the retailers, ourselves as an organisation, but also the supplier base, because ultimately I think that benefits to everyone in the supply chain.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Greg. Really, really lovely to have your take on things, especially seeing as you are positively looking towards the future. I mean, obviously, we find ourselves in the often used word unprecedented situation, but I think you're absolutely right. If something good can come from this, it's perhaps that the barriers we had to things like cashless payment, etc., have been removed because people have been forced to use cashless payment or delivery, etc. And now the barriers are removed. I can only see those areas supported by good tech and by good members. I can only see that growing, absolutely. So, Greg, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.